If you had an opportunity to listen or watch episode number 73, we talked about why some pastors, more and more pastors, are going co-vocational, which means it's not a financial reason, or bivocational, which means it is a financial reason, why more and more pastors are moving in that direction. So I'm not going to be repetitive. If you want to go hear that short podcast under 10 minutes or watch it on YouTube, you can go back to the previous episode, which would have been episode number 73. But in this episode number 74, we're going to talk about what are transition steps to move from a full-time pastor to a bivocational or co-vocational pastor. Once again, just as a reminder, we gave you the reasons for it in the previous episode. Now we're going to give you the practical steps in big chunks, not in the minutia, not in little bitty steps, but in big chunks, so that if you are considering it, you might think about these things before you move into it. Remember our sponsor, Belay. You hear me talk about them every single week, and I talk about them every single week, every episode, because first of all, I appreciate them. They have been the Church Answers source for productivity. We have had remote staffing solutions from day one, and they continue to provide them for us today. So we're so grateful for them. And if you want more productivity, where you don't have to do a lot of the things that really maybe a pastor or other people, staff members don't have to do, and you want someone else to help you in bookkeeping or an assistant role, Belay is your answer. So check them out. belaysolutions.com. And hey, also, you can get a free download, and it's called The Power of Productivity. And you can get that by going to texting. Get ready to text 55123. Text Thom at 555123. Okay, we're talking about the transition steps to move from being a full-time pastor. And just a caveat, if you didn't listen to a previous episode, full-time pastor means full-time compensated pastor, that you're able to live off of the compensation of the church. Pastors are typically full-time regardless of their label because they're 24/7. They're on call all the time. But what are the transition steps if you are thinking about going from full-time to bivocational or co-vocational? This would be an example. This would be the bivocational. You're watching the budget of the church. Since COVID, you've had a nice size decline in your attendance and a commensurate decline in your financial budget. You can see the metaphorical handwriting on the wall, and you can see that the budget is declining, and at some point, cuts will have to come. Maybe cuts have already come, but cuts will have to come, and it may include your compensation as well. That's not how all co-vocational, bivocational will take place, but I'm using that as an example. Now you're seeing the handwriting on the wall. I was talking to a pastor in California not too long ago about this. We were talking about the steps that he can take. I'm going to give you some broad steps to take. You can certainly get into the minutia a little bit more, but 3 big things that you need to know and do as you contemplate this move, or perhaps even as you anticipate someone else saying about you making this move. It's always good if you can be at the forefront and be ready. First, make sure your leadership is fully on board with the steps that you're going to make. Make sure they're really on board with the fact that you need to go bivocational. If it's financial, you can argue that it is a case where we don't have an opportunity to do anything but that, and that you're going to go into the marketplace, you're going to go into the secular workforce to augment the income that needs to be reduced at the church. Make certain, number one, that your leadership is on board. Of course, that is a principle for any major leadership decision. If you have elders, go to the elders. If the deacons are the primary decision-making body in your church, do that. If there's another group like trustees in your church that are primary decision makers, go to that group. Make certain before you start going to the church as a whole, the congregation start talking about the step, that you have your leadership fully on board. You want them agreeing that the step is right, and you want them to have your back. So step number one, leadership fully on board. Then the next thing that will happen is you'll have to say something to the congregation. You'll need to explain to them what you're doing and why you're doing it. Step number 2 calls for transparency. Leadership on board. Step number 2, transparency. There's no need to work around the issue. And if it's a financial reason, just say, look, I am going to have to take a pay cut because our budget can no longer support my salary. Just as transparent as that. Now you can imbue that with hope. You can say, but this is a great opportunity for me. I'm going into the marketplace. I still will love this church and care for this church, but here is the reason for the decision I'm going to make. A lot of churches, when their pastor moves from full-time compensated to bivocational, feel defeated. And I get that. I mean, they prided themselves, hopefully for the right reasons, on having a pastor that they were able to take care of that pastor's financial needs. I get that. But now it cannot happen anymore. You need to give them hope. You need to be transparent with them. You need to give them the clarity of what you are doing and why you are doing it. And this is a case where you don't want to tiptoe. You just want to, while you're offering hope, you just want to be very straightforward, and you want to let them know that you're okay as well. Now, presumably, you've already got that job. You don't want to go and announce it to the church until you have that second job, because you're not 100% certain how they're going to respond. So presumably, you already have that second job and you're ready to move into bivocational ministry. Number one, leadership on board. Number two, transparency. Number three, clarify what this change will mean. Things will change. And the congregation, as you provide them clarity of number two, you need to tell them what this means for your future as a bivocational pastor and what it means for the church's future. You will have to be straightforward with them. I no longer can go to all the meetings. I may have to have some help with pastoral care. I may look to the deacons to help me with hospital visitation. The list could go on, but there needs to be clarity that things are changing. If you are not giving the church as many hours as you were full-time, obviously something's not going to get done unless someone else picks it up. Something ain't going to get done by the pastor, that is for sure. So you need to let them know the things that will be handed off to others. Now, this is just kind of a reminder. This isn't all bad. What this may do is force you as pastor and the church to truly equip the people, the saints, to do the work of ministry. As Paul wrote to the church at Ephesus, the pastor's not supposed to do all the work of ministry, and this may be an opportunity to make your church a more biblical church. However, you need to keep these three steps in mind. If you're going to go from full-time compensated to bivocational, number one, leadership fully on board. Number two, transparency about what will happen. And number three, clearly tell them what the change is going to be, what ministries you will not be involved in directly as you were when you were full-time vocational. There are a lot of other details, of course, you have to work out, but I want you to keep those big three in mind. Okay, we've been taking time to talk about bivocational versus full-time compensated, and we've been talking about the reasons behind it, and we've been talking about the transition steps. We're going to finish this out with a third podcast. We're going to talk about the challenges of being a bivocational pastor after you have already been full-time. Thank you for Belay. We love Belay. We love the fact that they are our sponsor, that they are footing the bill for these podcasts that you can listen to or watch on YouTube, and they're making available to you a new download. That download is an ebook called The Power of Productivity. So just text Thom, go to 55123, text Thom, 555123 to get this free download. We'll continue to finish out this three-part series on going from full-time vocational to bivocational, co-vocational in the next episode as we specifically talk about the challenges. Join us for that one. If you didn't listen to the previous one, go back to that. You can have three parts in these three short 10-minute series. We'll see you at the next episode of the Church Answers Podcast. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just two. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just two or three things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the
Eva-
church is doing it or not. And then
Bingo.
I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis
Double
as well?
bingo. And maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is
It,
the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.